We are diving into one of the most powerful, uh, just searing indictments of economic injustice ever written. It's a book that really forces you to confront the very definition of humanity, of dignity, when everything is trying to tear it away.
Yeah.
We are taking on John Steinbeck's monumental American classic, The Grapes of Wrath.
And this is so much more than just a historical record of the Great Depression or, some tragic road trip novel.
Right.
Our sources show us that Steinbeck transforms this very specific crisis of the 1930s into a universal moral tale. It's about how people survive and ultimately transcend just overwhelming cruelty by forming a collective spirit.
That's our mission today. We want to give you, the listener, a truly deep understanding of why the Joad family struggle is still so profoundly relevant.
Exactly.
It's not just as a piece of literature, but as a kind of blueprint for understanding injustice, resilience, and the real power of unity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We're moving past the famous historical setting, the Dust Bowl, Route 66. We're looking at the moral architecture Steinbeck builds underneath all that history. This is really a story about the collective soul fighting back against institutional oppression.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Let's start at the beginning in Oklahoma, where the devastation is just total. We often think of the Dust Bowl as a natural disaster, the drought, the crops failing. But for the Joads, the real catastrophe was economic.
Well, what's so crucial to understand here is that the Joads weren't simply victims of bad weather. They were victims of a cold calculation.
A calculation, yeah.
Steinbeck identifies this fundamental failure. The system, which was driven by banks and large corporations, basically decided that land was more valuable as collateral or for large-scale production than as a place for families to actually live.
It's a difference between like an accidental loss and an intentional dispossession. The sources repeatedly personify the banks and the landowners not as individuals, but as the monster. So how does Steinbeck describe the mechanism of this injustice?
Oh, it's terrifyingly mechanical. We read about these steel-wheel tractors, often driven by just one guy who doesn't even care, coming in to rip up decades of history in a single afternoon.
And the men driving the tractors are their neighbors.
Often, yeah.
Yeah.
But they're driven by the banks, who are driven by pure capital. There's no human face to the eviction notices. It's just the company demanding profit.
That distinction, the cold steel replacing the human hand, that's the emotional and moral rupture at the heart of the story.
It is.
For the Joads, leaving Oklahoma is a physical necessity, but it's this immense tearing away from their fundamental identity. Their past, their sense of self, their connection to the earth, it all just vanishes.
And we see this expressed so violently in Grandpa Joad. I mean, he literally cannot survive the trauma of leaving the land. His body just gives out because his identity is so tied to that physical patch of earth.
What?
So the move westward, across Route 66, becomes this desperate quest for survival that's already weighted down by this profound spiritual loss.
And that immense weight is what they carry with them into California. It reminds you that the struggle they faced was systemic, it was built into the ruthless economics of the era, not just a matter of poor luck or some personal failure.
Which sets the stage perfectly for the character who brings meaning to all that suffering. Jim Casey.
The former preacher. He is, without a doubt, the moral compass of the entire novel. He starts out just wrestling with his faith, trying to figure out what holiness even means if it's not found inside a church.
Casey is such a striking creation. He's moved from traditional Christian dogma to this radical, almost transcendent philosophy. He realizes that holiness doesn't lie in some abstract devotion, but in the shared, lived human experience.
And this leads him to his great unifying realization.
Exactly. His epiphany is the book's philosophical cornerstone. Casey believes that all people are connected by a single, collective soul.
The one big soul.
The one big soul. He stops preaching to the individual and starts living for the one big soul that belongs to everybody.
That's a beautiful concept, but for someone, living through starvation and dispossession, it sounds maybe a little abstract, maybe even idealistic. How does this idea actually manifest in the Joad family's actions? And how does it change the central figure, Tom Joad?
Well, that's where Tom's arc becomes so crucial.
Okay.
Tom, fresh out of prison for homicide, starts off as this cynical, strictly individualistic guy. He only cares about getting a meal and protecting his immediate family unit. He's looking inward.
Just self-preservation.
Pure self-preservation.
Yeah.
But the journey is his education. As they move west, he witnesses this systematic exploitation, mass starvation, and just the profound, senseless cruelty inflicted on families exactly like his own.
Right.
And Tom starts to realize that when one family starves, it's not just a tragedy for that one family. It diminishes that one big soul Casey talks about. His inner growth is Steinbeck's central message in action.
Yeah.
You cannot overcome this level of injustice as an individual. You have to stand together.
And the turning point, that moment where the philosophy becomes a real fight, is Casey's sacrifice. Casey puts himself forward. He takes the blame for a fight to protect Tom, and then he's later killed while organizing workers.
Casey's nonviolent courage just profoundly awakens something in Tom. Tom witnesses the ultimate act of selflessness, and it gives him the purpose he was missing when he first got out of prison. The baton is passed.
So Tom steps up. He completely sheds his self-concern. He becomes more than just a family man. He transforms into a symbol of resistance.
He does.
And he's guided entirely by Casey's vision to be everywhere, fighting for justice, even if it means risking his freedom or his life. He embraces the collective soul fully. He moves from I to we.
His final vow that he'll be there in the dark, watching, ready to help wherever the oppressed gather, is arguably the most powerful expression of collective purpose in American literature. It's just incredible.
So the Joads finally reach California, the literal promised land, only to find their desperate hopes completely dashed. The reality they face is just institutionalized cruelty.
The sources paint a shocking picture. I mean, California is not a land of opportunity. It's a place of brutal agricultural exploitation. The wealthy landowners, they engineered a surplus of labor specifically to suppress wages.
So they created misery by design.
Exactly, by design.
And we see this in the specifics. The wages are starvation wages, just enough to keep a family alive for the next day. And the housing, the private camps, are deliberately filthy, unsanitary.
Steinbeck uses this reality to expose how systems built entirely on short-term greed just crush the human spirit. They offer no real path to upward mobility.
It's a tragic vision of broken capitalism. But amid this crushing brutality, we do start seeing those essential glimmers of light.
Yes.
Those powerful moments that really validate Casey's philosophy. The novel is punctuated by these acts of genuine, spontaneous humanity.
Absolutely.
So give us an example of that solidarity, because that's the true counterweight to all the systemic oppression.
Well, look at the small, crucial details. The Joads sharing their meager food with other starving families, or strangers offering to help repair their dilapidated truck, or just the ritual of people sitting together in the evenings in the roadside camps.
Just being together.
Just being together. Holding on to hope, even when the world is offering them none. This quiet, determined solidarity becomes the essential human reaction.
It's interesting, the novel doesn't just show corporate cruelty, it also shows an alternative. Steinbeck details the differences between the private corporate camps and the federally run government camps.
Right, the government camps like Weed Patch Camp, but they're these little sanctuaries where the Joads find a brief moment of dignity.
What's different about them?
They have sanitation, they have order, and crucially, they have a form of self-governance. The migrant workers police themselves. They enforce their own rules. The system respects them as human beings, and because of that, they behave with respect toward each other.
So it's proof that the problem wasn't the people.
Never. It was the system that was denying them their dignity.
And that raises a vital question for us. How do people maintain that inherent dignity when every force in their life, hunger, eviction, filthy camps, is actively and intentionally trying to strip it away?
The answer the novel provides is unwavering. It's connection.
Yeah.
Strength is only found in unity, in recognizing that shared humanity is a resource even more valuable than money or land.
And speaking of unwavering strength, we have to talk about the true emotional anchor of the novel, Joad.
Oh, absolutely.
She is essential to keeping that collective soul alive.
She is the quiet, unshakable power at the heart of the story. While the men are dealing with philosophical ideas and physical resistance, Ma is the force that maintains civilization. She's strong, she's patient, and she's absolutely determined to keep the family unit intact through every single hardship, from death to starvation.
Her persistence is. It's the novel's tribute to resilience. Her belief that the family must maintain its dignity no matter how desperate things get is what stops the novel from just spiraling into despair.
Yes. She refuses to let the Joads descend into that predatory, isolated existence the system expects of them.
So Joad is basically the physical manifestation of Casey's collective soul idea, but within the family structure.
That's a great way to put it. She's the one who literally keeps the we alive against all the forces of I.
And this sense of communal life, of unconditional selflessness, it all builds to the final, most haunting, symbolic act in the book.
Mm-hmm.
We have to spend a moment on Rose of Sharon. After just devastating loss and suffering, she performs this extraordinary act of grace.
It's an image that stays with every single reader. Rose of Sharon, who has just delivered a stillborn baby because of the appalling conditions, finds herself in a desperate barn during a massive flood. And she sees a dying elderly stranger, starved and frail.
And she offers her breast milk to him.
She does.
It's the ultimate moment of immediate physical compassion. It's almost a biblical image of charity and renewal. Why do you think Steinbeck chose this specific visceral act to end the book?
What's so fascinating here is the sheer transcendence of that moment. Rose of Sharon has suffered the loss of her child, the destruction of her family dreams. Yet instead of turning inward to grief, she turns outward to unconditional human need.
It transcends everything.
It transcends the economic exploitation, the physical degradation, even her own personal suffering. It suggests that the capacity for generosity and love remains eternally intact, even when you're faced with overwhelming cruelty.
It's a statement that the power of life and renewal doesn't belong to the individual.
Yeah.
It belongs to the community.
Yes. So if we synthesize all these elements, the economic critique, Tom's transformation, Moss's resilience, and Rose of Sharon's final gift, the novel is fundamentally about the collision between oppression and the extraordinary capacity of ordinary people.
They just refuse to surrender their dignity.
Exactly. And in that refusal, they find a revolutionary strength.
So what does this deep dive mean for us today? This story, written almost a century ago, is still a powerful, enduring defense of justice and a fierce call for empathy in a world that so often prioritizes profit over people.
The book reveals exactly where true strength is located. According to Steinbeck's narrative, it's not found in dominance or wealth or large institutions. It's found in unity and in the willingness to care for one another without condition. It's a foundational reminder that the human spirit, even when it's beaten down by systemic cruelty, can rise again with this quiet, unstoppable force, simply through connection.
And that resilience is the true collective gift the Joads offer us.
Absolutely. When the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, it becomes unbreakable.
So if the greatest power against systemic greed is simple, shared humanity, that collective soul Casey believed in, then consider this as you go through your week. What subtle moments of solidarity are you seeing in your own community right now that confirm that belief?